Good morning. My name is Sylvie, and I will be your conference operator today. At this time, I would like to welcome everyone to Canada Nickel Mineral Resource Update and makes a third new discovery. Note that all lines have been placed on mute to prevent any background noise. After the speaker remarks, there will be a question and answer session. If you would like to ask a question during this time, simply press star then the number 1 on your telephone keypad. And if you would like to withdraw your question, please press star then number 2. Thank you. Mr. Selby, you may now begin your conference.
I'd like to thank everyone for taking the time to hear about our 2 new exciting developments that we've had the pleasure to announce over the last 48 hours. First, our resource update, which was our second on Crawford, just over 1 year from when we started drilling the deposit. And then second, this morning's announcement about a third new discovery on a geophysical structure that's even larger than our existing main zone. With that, I'll begin the presentation. Going to slide 2, I'd like to point everyone to our forward-looking statements, and we may be saying things during this presentation that these things will address. So first off, our resource update delivered on the 2 key objectives that we had when we started this drilling last March. First off, the first key objective was increasing and better defining the size of the higher grade zone. Our higher grade zone measured resource increased by 162% to 150 million tons, grading 0.32% nickel, with just under 500,000 tons contained nickel. Our overall M&I resource increased by 9% to 1.7 million tons, and our total inferred resource also doubled to 1.6 million tons, achieving our second objective of continuing to expand the overall resource. The second part of today's presentation, and again from the announcement this morning, is our third discovery. We have talked a lot about the exploration potential at Crawford, that we are just getting started. Again, we're just 1 year into exploring a very large property package. And again, we expect to continue to make a number of discoveries as we move going forward. The most important part of this discovery was the reinforcement of our geophysical understanding of the deposit and what's controlling the mineralization. The geophysical footprint of the target that we're going after in this west zone is larger than our main zone. We zeroed in on gravity being a key controller of understanding where the better sulphide mineralization was in the main zone. That came through in spades as we extended the drilling out to the west. And then with these first 4 holes, all intersecting mineralized dunite, and we've already defined a very large footprint of 800 meters wide by 425 meters of strike length out of a total 2.5 kilometers of strike length. That's 400 to 800 meters wide, and again, sitting about 850 meters northwest of the main zone. We announced it today because we intersected some significant mineralization, grading 0.31% nickel and 0.09% sulfur, with more assays pending from this hole. The key thing with these deposits, we are going to find, lots and lots of 0.25% nickel, which will, provide a multi-decade resource base. But when these deposits get exciting is when you're able to start to get to see 0.3% nickel or better with sulfur present, which, indicates that we will have sulphide minerals present. We've already done some mineralogical work on these samples to confirm that, we are seeing the same pentlandite, hazelwoodite, aurorite assemblage that we see in the main zone. This resource update delivered a top 10 nickel sulphide resource based on the metrics used by WoodMac. We're continuing to aggressively advance this project. We'll deliver a PEA by the end of this year and a feasibility study by year-end 2021, and remain on track to deliver both objectives. Just as a reminder for people who are new to the story and may be dialing in for the first time, here on slide 4, just to locate the project itself. We're in a world-class jurisdiction sitting just outside Timmins. We have all the infrastructure in place that we need to advance the project. You travel north from Timmins on a provincial highway, about 30 minutes to the north, about 15 minutes north of the Kidd Creek mine. You have rail, road, hydroelectric power, all in place. This is a region, that continues to actively permit and develop mines, and is also an area with a long history of downstream processing. So, in terms of location where you can actually advance a large-scale nickel project, large-scale base metal project, this region is about as good as it gets. In terms of the resource update specifics, again, these numbers put us at, with over 3.2 million tons of contained nickel, have us ranking as one of the 10 largest nickel sulphide resources globally. Again, the key priority in this resource update was improving the scale of that higher grade zone. So again, overall M&I resource of 280 million tons at 0.31% nickel with cobalt and PGM byproduct credits. And again, that was sitting within an overall M&I resource of 650 million tons at 0.26% nickel. We made substantial increases to the inferred resource as we drilled out and reported an initial resource on the east zone for the first time. So it's 48 million tons of M&I at 0.26% nickel, and an inferred resource of over 200 million tons at 0.26% nickel. Again, adding significant amounts of nickel tonnage to our overall resource base. Graphically, where these sit, so the east zone is the faulted off extension of our main zone resource. You can see in the diagram here, that in addition to the already large resource on the east zone, we've got some areas that we can easily infill to continue to expand the resource there in the east zone. We ran into some timing constraints last winter in terms of freeze up, and so we haven't been able to drill those. We're going to go back in shortly and continue to infill this drill. So again, there's still significant resource potential on that east zone to go, as well as all of the resource potential to the west of the main zone. This chart, if there's a series of charts in here that talk about this discovery and this resource update, this here is one of the key ones and really highlights what we wanted to deliver here. When you have a big base metal open pit project, if you are able to deliver large volumes of higher grade material through the early years of that project, it has a profound impact on the economics of the project. That's why we're very keen to get the PEA done as soon as possible to be able to demonstrate what those economics look like. And as you can see between the prior resource and the current resource, the higher grade shell has more than doubled in scale. And more importantly, you can see that it's much more consistently thicker from end to end, where it was anywhere from 60 to 140 meters wide during the prior resource. We're now at 150 to 220 meters wide, from end to end. In terms of, the quantities of grade that we've got there, so, 200 million tons at 0.34% nickel, and that's including further 58 million tons at a 0.35% cutoff grade and 0.36% nickel. Again, very consistently thick from end to end, and extending at depth as well. Again, being able to have that kind of consistent thick mineralization will be very important in terms of the project economics as we move forward into the PEA. Just to give you an idea of what that scale of resource means in more concrete terms, we'll be looking at an initial mill scale somewhere in the range of 35,000 tons a day. At that kind of milling rate, you're looking at 16 years worth of resource at that kind of a production rate from that 201 million tons, and at a doubled rate of 70,000 tons a day, you've got 8 years of resource that's sitting there. So again, in terms of being able to, have that incremental grade, which generates incremental cash flow, and most importantly, turns into free cash flow, which drives the financial performance of the asset. This is a very, very, very significant outcome. Turning now to our new discovery. This was very, very exciting. I would like to first point you down to the bottom right-hand corner. You can see the area in green there is the higher grade zone that we we just looked at in detail and what the scale of that is there. You'll notice that it corresponds pretty closely to the blues there, which are gravity lows in that area. We use the gravity lows to target our infill drilling on the main zone. As we extended west, we didn't see the same strong magnetic signature that we had seen earlier, but the gravity low was very clearly indicating where the better sulfide mineralization is. We realized last spring that we had a massive gravity anomaly to the west. Unfortunately, the one constraint we have in drilling is this area does get soggy in the spring, and there was some soggy weather early in the summer, which kept it wet longer than it normally would. So we've literally been waiting from last April to drill this target off. We were very, very pleased that, and you can see from the first 4 holes there, that the gravity anomaly is corresponding very, very well to the mineralized dunite. And then most intriguing, and you can see from the inset pictures there, that we hit some nice levy sulfide mineralization, which delivered a 0.3% nickel grade, with that 0.09 sulfur, and again with the PGMs and cobalt and relatively high iron that we've seen in the main zone. At this point, it's far too early to tell whether it's the same structure that continues along from the main zone, or whether there's something else going on at this point in time. But again, to hit 800 meters wide of mineralization and already hit 400 meters, and given how consistent the drilling results have been to date, I expect that we will be able to successfully extend and define this mineralization to the north. Again, just managing expectations. A lot of this is going to be 0.2 to 0.25% nickel, but that amount of nickel in that kind of a structure with that kind of width, length, and depth is very, very compelling, and will be a significant additional chunk of value that we can look to add in the feasibility study as we move forward into 2021. Again, that is just Crawford. On top of the potential we have at Crawford, we now have 5 other properties that we picked up. We've just completed an airborne survey with the same mag and geogravity that we had used to zero in on Crawford, that we're flying on these other targets. We will expect the results back by the end of the month, and we'll look to have a set of targets ready for the next drilling campaign going forward. In terms of the scale of the resource, this chart here, each of these dots is nickel sulfide resource. This was a chart that was compiled by Vale back in 2015. What they were using this chart to do is look at the bottom right-hand corner and see that the generation of nickel sulfide projects to the bottom right is half the size of the prior discoveries back in the 1960s and 70s. You can see from this chart that Crawford is already one of the largest nickel sulfide discoveries since the 1970s. And given the exploration potential that we have at Crawford, from the additional properties that are there, we expect, a sizable increase in the overall nickel resource going forward. In terms of those dots that are ahead of us, the one on the top left is obviously Sudbury. The ones in 1960 are Norilsk and Jinchuan, and again, both of those underpin companies worth multi-billions worth of dollars. So, we expect to be in very good company as we continue to unlock the exploration. Again, we are just over 1 year into exploring this property and have a huge amount of potential to continue to explore. The reason the timing of this project, and again, it's good to have a great project. It's even better to have a great project that's well timed to meet market demand. We believe, the nickel industry is going to need 2.5 million tons, or double the amount of nickel it produced in 2018. For those of you who watched the Tesla Battery Day presentation, you can see that Tesla is targeting 3 terawatts of battery production. That amount of battery production alone requires 1 million to 1.5 million additional tons from today. And, other people will be making electric cars in addition to Tesla at that point in time. So that gives you some real world indication of just how much nickel the market is going to need here going forward. A few months ago, we announced our net zero approach. Again, we have an ability, because of our waste rock and tailings ability to absorb carbon, all the low carbon hydroelectricity in the region, and the fact that we have the potential to locate downstream processing plants in close proximity to our deposit to capture any off gases. Using that, we have an ability, we believe, to deliver a net zero carbon footprint, which again, is good for all consumers in this market, and we think it's something that the EV market will be very, very keen. This is a chart that we've had in our presentation for a long time, and again underpins my investment thesis and why I have most of my equity in this company. You get 1 or 2 good sulfide discoveries per decade. You can see the ones from the 90s, the 2000s, and then Sirius Resources' discovery of Nova Bollinger in 2012 was acquired by Independence Group for $1.8 billion at a feasibility study stage in 2015. We already have a multiple of the resource that's there. We're continuing the engineering studies here to be able to get to a feasibility study and demonstrate a reserve, which we think will be, a multiple of what Sirius has got before. And so again, I think is a pretty good indication of, where we believe the value of this company is headed. Just to summarize, we have 100% of this Crawford Nickel-Cobalt Sulphide project. It's one of the few new nickel sulfide discoveries, and we believe will be one of the great nickel sulfide discoveries of this decade and hopefully this century. This resource update underscored the exploration potential in terms of expanding the existing resource. This new third discovery further underscores, just how much potential this property could have, both for nickel and then PGMs. Completing a PEA on the Crawford by year-end, feasibility by year-end 2021. Over the next several months, you'll see metallurgy results. Those are going quite well, and we'll expect to have results on them by the end of November. And we'll have a series of exploration results, all through the winter in terms of the various step outs to the other targets that we've acquired. So I think it'll be a very, very exciting next 6 months. Our Net Zero Metals subsidiary is, positioned to be able to start delivering net zero nickel, and you'll see some announcements shortly in terms of moving forward on work to be able to prove up that concept. And again, we think Canada Nickel and Crawford is ideally positioned to take advantage of what we believe will be a nickel super cycle coming through in the latter part of this decade. And with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions people have.
Thank you, Mr. Selby. Ladies and gentlemen, as stated, if you would like to ask a question, please press star followed by 1 on your touch-tone phone. You will hear a 3-tone prompt acknowledging your request. And should you wish to withdraw your question, simply press star followed by 2. And if you're using a speakerphone, we do ask that you please lift the handset before pressing any keys. Please go ahead and press star 1 now if you do have a question. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, if you do have any questions, please press star followed by 1 on your touch-tone phone. And at this time, you have your first question from Simon Nakia, investor. Please go ahead, Simon.
Oh, hi. I'm just wondering about the progress that you have done. I've heard about Tesla wanting to link up with the Canada Nickel and where that might be.
So in terms of Tesla, so there's been a number of stories about a number of companies and Tesla. I can assure you, Tesla has a nickel group of people in their nickel supply chain, who keep tabs on all the various projects. Once we get a scoping study done, a PEA, I know that they will be keen to see, what the results are. At the end of the day, Tesla needs 1 million to 1.5 million tons of nickel, by the latter part of this decade. From their presentation, it was clear that they want to, try and source it locally. So, I'm sure we'll be getting, hopefully inbound calls from them, in 2021 once that scoping study is complete.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Next question is going to be from Robert Sin at co.ca. Please go ahead.
Hi, Mark. Just a few basic questions. Can you tell us how many, rigs you guys have going, on the property right now, and where are they at this point in time? And also, so how does this news announced, here this morning affect your thinking going forward?
Yeah, so in terms of the first question, so we've got 2 rigs going right now, one on the east side of the highway, which will follow up on the PGM in the thumb, and then the east zone, and then do more metallurgical drilling to support the metallurgical work. Then we have another rig on the west side of the highway, which will continue to follow up on this knuckle discovery. we'll be looking to add a number of rigs in the wintertime. It's much easier to get around. You can drill during most of the year, but it's just much easier in that area to drill in the wintertime. And so once we get the results back from the geophysics on the other properties, we'll look to gear up exactly how many rigs we'll have going through the wintertime. In terms of the second question around how this changes our thinking, again, the good problem to have is that you already have a sizable resource, which would be is one of the largest nickel sulfide resources globally. From the scale of the operations we're looking at, would be one of the largest nickel mines going just on already what we have. It makes sense to continue to push hard on a PEA and a feasibility study on that resource. And then we'll continue to drill out these other resources. And so, hopefully we'll be in a fortunate position of having to sort of expand, modify, build out, on what we initially come up with as we define, resources here in this area, and then again, hopefully resources on another 2 or 3 targets in the region. So it doesn't really change our plan per se. It just confirms that, our belief that, we're going to have multiple resources that'll feed a very large processing complex, and this goes a long way to, helping reinforce that.
Thank you.
Thank you. As a reminder, ladies and gentlemen, if you do have any questions at this time, please press star followed by 1 on your touchtone phone. And currently, Mrs. Selby, we have no further questions. Please proceed.
All right. I'd like to thank everyone for taking the time to hear the story today. Again, I think the resource update underpins, the strength and particularly the higher grade core of the potential of what we have at the main zone. And then this third new discovery, when hopefully we'll have a fourth and a fifth as we move forward here through the year, about the, significant massive potential that we have here going forward.
Thank you, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, this does conclude your conference call for today. Once again, thank you for attending, and we do ask that you please disconnect your lines.